The contact between the ball and the racket is the central, most important event of the game of tennis. The contact with the ball is the goal and the culmination of all the activities and all the hustle which take place on the tennis court. There is no tennis game without such contact. The contact with the ball is the holy grail of the tennis game, if you please. There is certainly no need to be overly obsessed about it, but to have a true mental image and correct understanding of what takes place between the ball and the racket is vitally important. Unfortunately, most players, to their own detriment, take the contact with the ball for granted and never dwell on this issue. As the consequence, their relationships with the ball are based upon erroneous assumptions and unreasonable expectations, which can result only in a diminished ball control. Here is a look at a high-speed footage of a collision between the ball and the racket. Please keep in mind that this is not your average, run-of-the-mill tennis stroke. This is an excessively powerful drive, and that's what such drive looks like up close. As the law says, that a body at rest tends to stay at rest. That is why our law-abiding ball doesn't want to be moved when the racket attacks it. At first the ball stands its ground. You can see that one half of it remains motionless, even while its other half is being savagely crushed by the racket strings. The ball will resist this unprovoked assault for as long as it possibly can, or for as long as its own mass permits it to do so. But at some point, it becomes quite hopeless, and the ball can no longer withstand the overwhelming force of the racket, and it begins to move along, together with the racket. But this united journey is short-lived though. It lasts only for 1 millisecond or so, and for about 1.5 inches. The ball and the racket part ways rather quickly, because the ball rapidly outpaces the racket and begins traveling on its own, leaving the racket far behind. That's pretty much all there is, as far as the interaction between the ball and the racket goes. It is quite an uncomplicated and straightforward kind of relationships. Each participant's behavior is well within the rules of proper conduct, stipulated by the laws of physics. As I said, what you have seen is an example of an extreme impact, which happens rather infrequently. The basic stroke, executed even by the professionals, wouldn't look nearly as scary as what you saw. In your average stroke, the ball goes through the same stages of transformation which have been described, but all the stages would be less salient, more subdued. They would also be somewhat shorter in duration. As it was said, even when the ball gets completely flattened by the impact, the ball and the strings will remain in physical contact for only about 1.5 inches of travel. That physical contact lasts around 1 millisecond. In the context of the whole swing, that is what 1.5-inch contact looks like. As for the time, 1 millisecond is the duration of a photo flash. 1.5 inches, and a photo flash, that's all the time and space a player will ever have for taking possession of the ball and imparting onto it all the desired attributes of spin, speed, and direction. To accomplish all of it, under such severe time and space constraints, when the ball practically explodes off the strings of the racket, you've got only two practical choices. The ball can be either struck very sharply and very assertively, or be deflected very carefully. The belief on the part of numerous players that the ball can be held on the strings, and in the meantime it can be carved, rolled over, brushed, or steered, are simply delusional. No ball hangs around long enough for you to be able to do any of those things to it.
This also teaches us that the contact is not very short, like in the first instance where we had a loose and short contact. That's the worst way of hitting a tennis ball. So you want to stay a little bit with the ball when we hit it. That's why we want to feel that we're like compressing the ball. You're like this on the ball and then you're going over. Right. So you want to compress and roll the ball. That's it. Okay, so now a second way of hitting the ball in the wrong way is loose and long. Okay, a third way of hitting the ball in the wrong way is holding the racket very firm and making a very short contact. Okay, here's the next way of hitting the ball in the wrong way, and that's very firm and very long. Okay, so let's take a look at the correct way of hitting a tennis ball, which is what we did with Sasha on the bench, which is to compress the ball and then roll it. When you're practicing on the bench, that compressing and rolling the ball takes a while, but what is actually possible is that we shorten that time, like by 10 times or 20 times, and it's just in our mind. Compress and roll, but very quickly.
As for all the new age gurus, in short pants, who are busy peddling their fantasies, and all their gullible disciples, I'd like to remind all of them, that on this planet, it is the laws of physics, which dictate the terms of engagement between the balls and the rackets. And no one will have any say, or have any choice, when it comes to those arrangements. No one is free to choose, to compress the ball, or not to compress it, to brush the ball, or not brush it, to carve it, or not. And most certainly no one will decide how long to hold the ball on the strings for. None of these items are on the menu here. Only the ball itself decides how long the contact with the racket will last. And this is not something which could be negotiated, or even be open for a debate. The only real choice you've got in this matter is to humbly acquiesce to all of those terms, and then go do your best to comply. Without a doubt, visualization is a powerful tool, but it is also a double-edged sword. The mental images which the players create in their heads will inevitably direct, and ultimately determine, the kind of actions which the players will choose to perform while interacting with the ball. The actions which will prove to be either beneficial or damaging to the entire undertaking. Introducing false imagery, as a training device, is not a good idea. For the best results, the mental image of the interaction with the ball must be reality-based, and not be shaped by some new age esoteric notions.